Hi there, welcome along to Good Morning Transfers. 10 days to go in the winter window and there is big news coming out of Manchester United. Loads for us to get stuck into in the company of Jody Morris and James Green. Jean-Philippe Mateta's future isn't resolved. He wants to leave Selhurst Park, but will he get his wish? He's not the only player that wants out of their club. Lucas Paqueta won't be playing for West Ham this weekend as he hopes for a return to Brazil. And we're gearing up for another big weekend in the Premier League. We will hear from a host of managers, including Eddie Howe. Right, morning to you all at home. Good morning to you two as well. Have you cleared up that coffee that you spilled just a couple of minutes ago on the side there?
He's had a good start
as you mean to go on. Yeah, I can just catch it at the corner of my eye there, fiddling away. Good to have you anyway, Jody. We've got to start with that Casemiro news, I think, haven't we? I suppose it wasn't surprising. I suppose many people were expecting it, but do you think it is the right decision? Is now the right time for Manchester United to look forward, to look to their future in terms of their midfield?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm being honest, I'm quite surprised that he stayed there to the end of his contract. For me, he's been a shadow of the player that we were lauding at Real Madrid. Been a great player, and he's had maybe sort of a couple of spells at Man United where he done okay. For me, it was early on in his career at Man United, and for me, it was inevitable. I suppose the only thing that you would say as a Man United fan is that you haven't really managed to get any money. Well, they're not going to get any money for him, which would have been nice considering the amount of wages that he's on. But for me, he's not performed to the levels at all at Man United.
It was a big deal, wasn't it? It was like £70 million back in 2022, and wages north of £300,000 a week. It's quite a lot. And
well, we thought it was big at the time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like for his age,
changer.
70 million.
For a 28-year-old.
Yeah, and then when you then hear the sort of wages that he was on, and James was right, but for me it was an astronomical size deal for someone of that age, and don't think he's really produced.
Well, the news comes at the same time that Manchester United are ready to open talks with Mainoo over a new contract. So quite the turnaround for him, James, isn't it? It's unbelievable, really. I mean, just a few weeks ago, he looked surplus to requirements. He only got his first league start in January, and now talks to get a new contract. It's amazing.
It's amazing what happens when a manager leaves, doesn't it? And new people come in and with fresh eyes to look at it. Look, there's someone who's come through the academy at Manchester United. He's actually one of the less paid members of the Manchester United first team. So discussions are ongoing with his representatives about bringing him up to some parity with his teammates. And yeah, it didn't start under Ruben Amorim in the Premier League, and then Michael Carrick's come in on interim basis, starts him straight away. And actually, he was terrific. He showed everybody what sort of player Mainoo is, didn't he?
Well, for me, it's been scandalous the way he was treated under Amorim. I think what he done at such a young age for not just Man United but for England. I was a huge fan, and even going back to the contract situation, they clearly wanted him to sign a new one. I think at the beginning of the season, well, maybe at the back end of last season, there was talks going on. But I suppose if you're his representatives, whoever that is, the minute you've been treated like that by Amorim, you put the handbrake up and you put them on put that contract situation on the hold.
Do you think as a club as well at the time who were, putting all their eggs in the Ruben Amorim basket, they're looking and going, hold on a minute, we've got a player who's got 18 months left on his contract, but he's not in the first team reckoning. Maybe this isn't the time to offer him a contract, despite the fact he's come through the academy.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they've been speaking for ages, and then all of a sudden it gets put on hold, whether that's because the club's backing the manager, but you do need to realise as well that football is a business, and when you are running a football club, whether it be sporting directors or people who are the money men, you've got to protect your assets. So, I mean, I'm sure that they're quite pleased that Mainoo's been put in straight away, because it will give them a better chance of getting him over the line with a contract. And I'm pleased to see it, to be honest, because I like seeing young English players coming through, and I think he comes under that bracket as one of the one of the top ones we have.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. Just in one game, he seems to have just reaffirmed his value incredibly, and it's almost like, right, he's locked down his midfield position. But then who's going to play alongside him? So now the focus turns to, probably in the summer, really, rather than in January, who they can bring in. And there are three obvious options we've all been talking about: Anderson, Baleba and Wharton. Now, you've had a quick look at those three and their numbers this season. They're not all exactly the same, are they, in terms of midfield?
Look, you can determine numbers in different ways, but we're going to have a look at them now on the screen. You'll just see some comparison between the three right now. And you'll see, look, Anderson's played a lot this season. The difference in successful passes is huge, actually. But Anderson's stats just match up so heavily. Carlos Baleba hasn't had a great season. It's, I think, pretty fair and obvious for everybody to see. He was fantastic last season, struggled a little bit this season. And remember, there was talk in the summer about a link of Manchester United interested in Carlos Baleba. Adam Wharton's an interesting one. Crystal Palace remain resolute that he's one for the future for them. They want to build the team around him. But Steve Parish has also spoken recently about the fact he knows he's an ambitious young player, and eventually at some point he'll want to play Champions League football. But he has a long contract at Crystal Palace. Anderson's got a long contract. Carlos Baleba's tied down at Brighton. Whichever one you pick, it's going to cost a lot of money in the summer.
Who's going to be the cheapest, do you think, of those three?
For me, I would say the cheapest probably, I think you'd be able to get Adam Wharton for cheaper than the other two. I think because of what happened with Moises Caicedo at Brighton and the value they put on him, and obviously the amount of money they recruit from Chelsea for that, I think they'll look at Carlos Baleba and go, well, hold on a minute, we see you as potentially being as good as Moises Caicedo, so we won't accept anything below, say, 100 million. Elliot Anderson, for me, has been terrific. For me, he's the standout option for Manchester United as a defensive midfielder. We've not just seen his impact at Nottingham Forest, we've seen his impact at England. And you mentioned about Kobbie Mainoo and the fact he was starting in that central midfield role before. Elliot Anderson's come in, perhaps surprising at the start when he came in. He hasn't put a foot wrong. He's been excellent, and he's been able to unleash Declan Rice further forward. For me, it's Elliot Anderson. I think he's probably in the middle of Wharton and Baleba in terms of how much he'll cost.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? If you take the cost out of it, say they all cost the same, which of those three would you pick to play alongside Kobbie Mainoo in the midfield?
I agree with James. I just think Elliot Anderson's head and shoulders above the other two at the moment. I think his growth as a player. I also think, I know he comes under the bracket as a defensive midfielder, but I think he can play as an 8 as well. I think he shows that he's got not only ability to link the play and take it off the centre halves, and you see with the amount of passes he makes. I mean, I made a comment when they played City that for me, Elliot Anderson looked more like a City player than Gonzalez did when they played against each other. But I think he can do both roles. So if there was an opportunity to obviously go in a big club like Man United, I think you'd look to take it. But if I'm being honest, I think there'll be other takers for Elliot Anderson, which might be further forward than Man United are.
Yeah, I think there'll be a queue of suitors, and you make a good point. I mean, I think he grew up in Newcastle, actually playing more of a 10 when he was younger. But he's somebody who's learnt his trade. He went on loan to Bristol Rovers for a short period, helped get them promoted, scoring 6, assists 6 as well. He was such a big part of that.
So this is somebody wing as well, hasn't he?
He's played on the wing at Newcastle as well. And then obviously, if you see Newcastle, they didn't want to sell him. Eddie Howe's been very open about the fact that he never wanted to get rid of him. It was PSR reasons that determined that. But actually, it's probably been the best move for him, because you look at that Newcastle midfield, Tonali, Joelinton, Guimaraes, he might have struggled to get in there, which seems remarkable considering how well he's played. But I agree with Jody. I think Manchester United might be one suitor, but there'll be a whole host of suitors for Elliot Anderson.
The only thing I would say is that probably the type of player, if you wanted him to play with Kobbie Mainoo, it might lean towards Baleba, because he's a bit more of a breaker-upper.
Right.
And that could be a bit more in the mould of, say, a Casemiro, a younger version. But the form, like James said, I think his form's been really poor since the focus and spotlight has been on him, and some players can deal with that. And I have to say as well, I'm a fan of Adam Wharton's, and I think the higher level of team that he plays in, even though he's been playing in a hugely successful Palace team, I think you'll even get more from him because of the type of passes that he sees and the vision that he has in both feet.
Yeah, fascinating to see what happens with these three guys, probably in the summer. As for Manchester United, how about this for a game up next? They are off to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. We've got Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira amongst the studio guests. You make sure you tune in for that one. 4 o'clock, Sky Sports Premier League, Super Sunday. Right, another player who has been of interest to Manchester United in the past, may still be, we're not too sure, but it is a story to keep a close eye on before deadline day, and that is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who has told Crystal Palace that he wants to leave the club. Latest blow in a terrible few days for Palace. What's the latest then in terms of Mateta, and what are the different ways that this could play out over the next few days?
Oh, it's messy for Crystal Palace, and I really feel for Crystal Palace. You know, last season, their most successful season as a football club, winning a major trophy, qualifying for Europe, and then the past week has been utterly horrendous, hasn't it? Mark Gay, their captain, leaving, Oliver Glasner saying he's going to leave at the end of the season. Now Jean-Philippe Mateta, his future's up in the air. Look, we understand he actually wanted to leave in the summer. Multiple clubs actually tried to sign the player in the summer. He wants to play Champions League football. There was even a late inquiry from Spurs in the summer, but Crystal Palace kept hold of him. Clubs in Italy, Atalanta, AC Milan, Juventus, very keen. Now, Juventus initially wanted him on loan in this window, but this was something that never materialised. Crystal Palace were not entertaining a loan move, even with a short fee of around €2 million. The player is desperate to play Champions League football. He's got 18 months left on his contract, 28 years old, nearly 29 years old, and he sees his future away, and he sees this as an opportunity to do it. But for Crystal Palace, you've got to look and go, can they afford to let their captain go? Can they afford to let their main man go up front? And they want to stand firm. They won't want to let him go in this window.
What do you make of where Palace are right now? Because they win their first trophy, playing brilliant football under Glasner, start the season well as well. They managed to cope with selling Eze to Arsenal. Now, all of a sudden, it seems to be falling apart. You know, they've lost Gay, Mateta wants out, Glasner is going to leave at the end of the summer. Everyone knows that. He's kicked off against the owners. What could Palace have done to avoid this? Or was this just inevitable? When you're a club like Crystal Palace and you're doing well, big clubs come in and raid your talent?
Unfortunately, I think it's inevitable. I think that's just the way that Palace works. And I have to say, I think Steve Parish has done an amazing job of navigating that squad and recouping good money for players that... I know Dougie Freedman's not there anymore as sporting director, but he done a great job of getting some great young players in. They've got good money. And how unlucky have they been? I mean, even with the European competition that they then have to drop down into the lower version of it. Listen, I think it's just the way where Palace are at. And unfortunately, when everything's going great and you're flying and winning games, maybe players are okay to stick around. And when it looks like the manager's not going to be there the next year, when they see other players, their teammates know that they're moving on, and maybe the Mateta situation, they said, well, I've stayed and weren't allowed to go in the summer, now you're letting people go. I want to go as well then. Because, listen, Palace, we know, is not a club that are going to compete with the big money men in the league, and they've got I know Steve Parish has got people to answer to regarding getting money into the football club, so that's a hard thing to juggle at times when you're a Palace fan and you know you've just watched your most successful season ever, and what a 18 months they've had.
Yeah, and I think on that as well with Steve Parish, he's a tough businessman. He won't let Mateta go for nothing just because a player's come to him and said, I want to leave, I see my future away. He's not going to sit there and go, OK, well, we'll accept the first offer for you. They value him at around £35 million. Now, that for Juventus seems potentially quite steep. That might be too steep for a lot of clubs looking at bringing in a 28, nearly 29-year-old who's got a little bit left at 18 months on his contract. The fee might be tricky, and that's where I think the stumbling block may be in this window. But we know what January can be like, and January is, as much as it's a difficult month to get business done, if a club is desperate for a player or wants a striker desperately, who are always so sought after in any transfer window, that potentially could be a deal that could happen towards the end of the window.
In all of this, I mean, obviously they're going to miss Gay, they're going to miss Eze, they already do. If Mateta goes, they're going to miss him. But is the biggest regret not holding on to Glasner in some ways? Because especially now that he said that he's going, the whole thing could fall apart. Other players could leave.
But I imagine they've been trying to. And maybe Glasner has options that might come to fruition in the summer. Maybe
they could have kept him more happy, couldn't they, with players coming in?
Well, I mean, again, I think that's difficult to do when you've got people to answer to upstairs with where Palace are at. They would have hoped to maybe get a little bit more money in by going into the Europa, whatever one it is, conference, yeah, rather than the one. Yeah.
Chelsea won it. You should know about it.
Yeah, but I don't really count those sort of. But listen, I just think that's where Palace are at, and they're probably offered Glasner multiple contracts that he's turned down. So listen, it's a difficult job running a football club at the best of times, let alone when you're kind of trying to fight success with balancing the books.
Yeah, lots of stories around Palace at the moment. We've got plenty to come as well on Good Morning Transfers. Nottingham Forest are closing in on signing a striker. And will Lucas Paqueta play for West Ham again? Stay tuned. These pictures just reaching us. Lewis Hamilton in Maranello as Ferrari gets set to launch their new car for the 2026 season. They'll do that later this morning and will be live to Italy at around about 10:30, where we expect to see Hamilton drive the new car along with his teammate Charles Leclerc. Right, we're going to go to Nottingham Forest now, though, and Lorenzo Luca is having a medical today ahead of an initial loan move from Napoli. The agreement between the club also contains a £34.8 million option to buy the striker. He's a very, very big lad as well. We're going to get into that in a moment. But first of all, Jody, when you look at their situation now compared to last season, Nottingham Forest, is the main difference simply they haven't got a Chris Wood or someone like that who is banging in goals up front? They are really missing that goal scorer up front this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like that. And also we've got to take into account that people respect them a lot more than they did in maybe previous seasons when they was in relegation battles. I mean, for the past 18 months or so previous to this year, they've certainly picked up and they was a threat massively on the counter-attack. They've maybe missed Elanga. We know he hasn't really done too many great things at Newcastle, but he was certainly a thorn in many a side when he was counter-attacking for Nottingham Forest. So, yeah, listen, I think it comes with the territory. I think when you get a little bit of success, teams respect you. But they certainly look like they need someone to be putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, well, Igor Jesus, they actually rested yesterday, didn't have a recognised number 9 in the squad. Lorenzo Luca, though, if you look at his stats, only 1 goal in Serie A this season. So why are they so keen to bring him in? What is the selling point for Lorenzo Luca that's got them
You
here?
sold him at the top where you say he's a big lad. He's 6'7", and we know with Sean Dyche he likes big centre forwards. We saw the impact Chris Wood had at Nottingham Forest last season. It's an interesting one with Lorenzo Luca because it's another one of these complex situations where he's technically an Udinese player, but he's on loan with an obligation to buy for Napoli. He's met those requirements already, so it's technically then...
It's like the Tammy Abraham situation.
Like the Tammy Abraham situation, very, very similar. So it gets a little bit messy, but Napoli forked out a big loan fee in the summer to bring him to Naples. A big option to buy, which is around 29 million euros, I believe, at the end of the season. But he's not playing. He started just 4 Serie A games this season, not hit the ground running at all. But if you go back to last season at Udinese, he scored 14 goals, had the most headed goals in Serie A. And that will be something that Sean Dyche will be looking at as a reason why maybe this is the guy for us. If he can get the most out of their wingers, get the ball in the box more, a la Chris Wood last season, maybe this is why they've got this guy. And as you mentioned, like they need help up front at the moment without Wood being injured at the moment.
I've just got a transfer update for you regarding Oscar Bob. James, wonder what you can tell us about this. We know that Fulham have been interested in Oscar Bob, and is anything moving on this at the moment?
Yeah, there's a bit of movement to it right now. Fulham remain in talks right now over Manchester City's Oscar Bob. So look, we kind of knew this was going to happen at some point. Discussions, we understand, though, at the moment are believed to be progressing, but Fulham have not yet made a formal bid. Sky Sports News understands that. And Bob has been of interest to a number of clubs this month, and that includes Borussia Dortmund. So it's another one of those City players that seems like they're deemed for surplus to requirements, but one that can bring in a good transfer fee again. That's something that Manchester City seem to have done pretty well over recent years.
Do you think Bob will be a good move for Fulham and the player?
I really like him.
Yeah.
I think he was so unlucky to get that serious injury when he got it because he was playing games for Man City, burst onto the scene. I think he's a real talent and one that I think more than 1 or 2 Premier League clubs should be looking at because I think, especially if you're lacking from an attacking aspect, I mean, I know Fulham have got people like Harry Wilson's on fire this year that might be playing in a similar position, but I'm a real fan of Oscar Bob and I think he can enhance many attacking teams in this Premier League.
OK, well, Fulham remain in talks over signing him. Just to remind you, discussions are believed to be progressing for Oscar Bob. Fulham have not yet made a formal bid. That's what we understand. He has also been of interest to a number of other clubs this month, including Borussia Dortmund. We'll keep you posted if anything happens on the Oscar Bob front. Now, back to Nottingham Forest, who have been linked with the Sunderland forward Wilson Isidore, who hasn't started a Premier League game since December the 6th. Sunderland head coach Regis Lebris admits the striker is frustrated by the lack of game time.
For Wilson, it's always so had many conversations with him and his agent recently. He's a really good player, important for us. Did really well in the past and for sure in the future as well. And we still have momentum. And I think for Sunderland at the minute it's really positive to have Brian in a good form. And two strikers, Eddie and Wilson, ready to go.
If he were to leave this window, could you get by from now until the end of the season with Brian Brobby and Elijah Mayenda, or would you then need a replacement?
That's a good question. So I don't want to answer. With only one player, you can sustain the level because of the physicality, because of the strength of the opponents. You need two to sustain the level, and one more versatile is always useful. So our setup at the minute is perfect.
Just some news reaching us regarding a player who's been looked at by several clubs in the Premier League, and that is Jan Diomande. However, Leipzig's £86 million demand for him is putting clubs off making a bid this month. Tottenham, Liverpool and Manchester United are among a number of teams who are monitoring the Ivory Coast winger. One to watch in the summer, we think, for sure. Let's get to West Ham now. Nuno Espirito Santo has confirmed Lucas Paqueta will miss the game against Sunderland tomorrow. The Brazilian has been heavily linked with an exit from the London Stadium this month, with a potential return to his boyhood club Flamengo on the cards.
It's the same as last week. We hope that the club and Lucas find a solution. You know my opinion about Lucas. It's already been said in this room. But for this game against Sunderland, he's not going to be in the squad.
He's not. He's still.
No, he's not going to be in the squad.
Is there a timeline? Is that the back injury?
We have to deal
still?
day by day. We have to deal with the Lucas situation day by day.
And how's he feeling mentally right now? Because we know it's been a tough period for him. He's been quite open about how he's been feeling.
Yeah, all the things that happened in the past has created so many problems individually. Now that he's finished, like I said, I hope Lucas and the club find a solution so we can move forward from that issue.
James Green doing the grilling there of Nuno yesterday. What's going on then? What is going? Is he injured?
What, with my grilling?
Is he not? No, your grilling was fine.
He was happy when I finished, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bet he was. What is happening? Is he injured? Is he not injured? Why is he not featuring?
Look, originally it was a back injury that was cited. Reason he came off against Nottingham Forest, he had back spasms. That's what the club had cited as to why he didn't play against QPR and didn't play again against Tottenham. But yesterday it was very clear, speaking to Nuno Espirito Santo, the reason he's not playing, he's mentally not ready to play right now. So that's the situation. He might have still a slight back injury, but I think if the other situation wasn't solved, I think the back injury wouldn't prevent him from playing. Problem is, look, he wants to go back to Brazil. He's desperate to go back to Brazil. Flamengo, we know, are very interested in signing him. They're not in a rush, Flamengo, to sign him at the moment. So they don't need to rush. Season doesn't start for a little bit of time. I think about March when they can sign him. And then even if they sign him in the summer, he comes in at a good time where they're pushing for the latter stages of their season. So they're quite relaxed about that. From West Ham's perspective, he's arguably their best player, second best player, however you want to call it, behind Jarrod Bowen. He's so important to them, and when you're in a relegation battle, surely you need your best quality players. This is a player who's contracted still at the club. So West Ham's perspective, albeit they're supporting him in his current struggles mentally, but they can't just say, OK, yes, go back to Brazil, we'll just let you go on the cheap. They have to look at it at a business perspective and go, you are contracted to us. Unless someone's going to pay us a transfer fee that we value you at, you're going to have to carry on playing, and we need you right now. We're in a relegation scrap. Nuno is very clear. He wants Paqueta to stay. He's a big fan of his, big fan of the impacts he can have on his side, and knows it's all hands on the pumps right now. He doesn't shy away from the fact they're in a relegation scrap. But it's whether there's an agreement can be reached between the player and the club. It's a really tricky situation, especially for Nuno right now.
It is a tricky situation, isn't it? If you were a West Ham decision maker, how would you handle this, do you think?
I think it's a difficult one because if he's one of those, and by the way, I think he is one of the better players, but I think he's underperformed just as much as anyone this year, and I think Jared Bowen is head and shoulders ahead of him as far as being importance to West Ham. But we're talking about a player who goals not too long ago, putting the phone down as if like he didn't want to leave West Ham, and like you were saying, West Ham have supported him. He's underperformed massively for me this season, and do you want someone like that in your team or in and around your squad who's clearly trying to make strides to get out of the football club? When you're in a relegation battle, which West Ham definitely are in, you need people to roll their sleeves up and put their foot in and get stuck in. You don't want people that are trying to exit the door. And I understand why he's not in the squad, but as James rightly points out, he's got plenty of time left on his contract, and the figures that you're seeing being bandied about for him, if you're talking over a year ago, they reckon he was going to Man City for big numbers.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be settling for that. So I'd have a chat with him personally if I was Nuno, saying, look, you need to be playing whilst you're still looking to try and get away, because the club ain't letting you go. No one's winning if you're not playing on the sidelines or not even in the squad.
And he's not winning either, with a World Cup on the horizon too. So I've absolutely no doubts that Nuno's spoken to the player and tried to express his need for him. I think it's a really a difficult situation where he wants to go back to Brazil desperately. So is there an agreement that can get him back in the summer? Will that be enough for Lucas Paqueta?
Sell him and loan him back to West Ham.
Yeah, he won't be endearing himself to the fans as well, by the way.
No.
Because like the minute you see players that are not in the squad and they're going for mental reasons because he wants to leave the club, I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting booed the minute he starts playing again.
Well, that's the last thing that he needs and last thing that West Ham needed in the situation they're in right now. Right, next up, we will bring you the Newcastle boss, Eddie Howe, and we'll be chatting all things Chelsea with Jody. Lots going on potentially with Chelsea later on this month. We'll see you in a bit. Good morning, transfers. Newcastle take on Aston Villa live on Sky Sports this Sunday. Will Bruno Guimaraes be fit? He's a doubt after injuring his ankle in the Champions League win over PSV Eindhoven on Wednesday. Eddie Howe has just been holding his pre-match news conference. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, we'll always try and make the right decisions, as we do with every player, depending on need and circumstances, to protect them long term, but also to help the team if they need to play. So we'll try and get that right with Bruno. He is a pivotal player. I've always said he's been the match winner for us so many times over the years. He's an inspirational figure, so we need him. But of course we need him fit and available and able to perform to his best level. So we try and make all the calculations and come up with the right decision.
And how's Dan Burn? Any chance of even being involved in the squad on Sunday?
Possibly. I think with Dan, he, as you saw in the Champions League, around the Champions League game, he is out with the players. Today, possibly the first day where he's training fully with the group, taking contact, and that will be the key thing for him. But he's, I think, desperate to get back involved, so that's a great sign.
Eddie, just on transfers, obviously there's not much time left in the window, and I think you've already sort of hinted at it. There's no panic either way. If you get someone in, you've still got players coming back. Where do you stand on it at the minute? You're not panicking or anything like that?
No, I'm not panicking. I think that is the worst thing you can do in the transfer market, is make rash decisions. So I think we have our strategy. I'll say it time and again. PSR is controlling what we're able to do, and I think you'll understand that gives us limited room to manoeuvre to try and bring a player in that's good enough to elevate the group and to have a long-term future at the football club. With the finances we have available is very, very difficult. So let's see what happens in the last few days. I mean, anything can happen from this point onwards, but certainly we will try not to panic, and we'll try and make the right decisions.
Thank you. There was a bit of chatter, sort of rumours that Lewis Miley was sort of unsettled last summer and could leave. I presume that was never something that you entertained, and you would like him to spend, the vast majority of his career at his hometown club.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying that we were desperate to keep Louis last summer. I don't think there was anything necessarily from Louis' side other than he's keen to play and he's keen to show his qualities. And I don't think he wanted a season where he wasn't involved regularly enough to develop his football career. And you understand that with any footballer, any young player. Playing is ultimately where you develop, and it's always a delicate balance for me because I can only pick 11 players, and under pressure here I have to try and win. So that's always a difficult balance where you want the squad but you want players to push on in their careers. But we felt that we would get football this season. We felt he would contribute. There'd be opportunities to play, and then the rest is up to him. How much he plays then is ultimately guided by how he performs, and to this point he's performed really well, and that's why he's getting more minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, tough fixture list ahead for Newcastle, actually. At least their defensive injury problems are easing just a little bit with the likes of Dan Burn coming back. We're going to talk Chelsea right now, though, and there could be a bit of action in terms of ins and outs for Chelsea before the deadline. It is Chelsea, so you never know what's going to happen. They could be very busy. They could not be. But what is the latest with Chelsea incomings then?
Well, latest is I'm going to be careful with everything I say about Chelsea because of this guy behind me. But look, latest is they are in the market for a centre-back. Levi Colwill, injured his ACL at the start of the season, opened up a space. And actually, the irony with it is that Enzo Maresca was very keen on bringing in a replacement, and actually they didn't get one in the summer, did they? But they've been in talks with Iran defender Jeremy Jacquet, young 20-year-old. Quite an expensive deal, this one. Could be around like £60 million if they can get that
for a
one.
while now, isn't it?
But it has been linked for a while. I think we first reported it nearly a week ago now. So it's maybe the interest stalled a little bit, the noise has stalled a bit, but there's still time in the window for that to take on. And look, Chelsea wants someone who's ready-made, who can slot straight into the starting lineup. There's been interest in movement on Douglas Luiz at Nottingham Forest. Now, the Times and the Athletic are reporting that Chelsea are interested in bringing him in on loan. Now, that's to offer and provide a bit more depth in the centre of the park. Romeo Lavia struggled with his injuries. Usogo also struggled with his injuries. So it feels like that could just bolster the squad a little bit of experience in the middle of the park. I'm quite sure you're convinced Douglas Luiz is one for Chelsea, though, are you?
No, not really. I mean, I'd be surprised if Douglas Luiz fancies it. I mean, the whole point of going on loan is playing games. And, yeah, all right, it's a step up if you're leaving Forest to go to Chelsea. But at the same time, like I said, and again, I'm sure Douglas Luiz has aspirations come the summer as well. Like, you don't want to be going somewhere then not playing. Does surprise me, that one. I agree with the centre-half shout. I think that's been needed. But then I've also seen that I think they've pulled Dizazi back into the first team training squad. Yeah. So whether that's Liam having a closer look, and again, he was bought under the sporting director, so maybe the sporting directors have an opinion of him that maybe Maresca didn't. Who knows? So I can see it though, because we've certainly lacked this defensive structure, not just centre halves, by the way. We've lacked a little bit of defensive structure, particularly on the turnover. So. Yeah, surprised at the Douglas Luiz one.
Yeah, is that? I mean, are you surprised also because he doesn't fit the profile of what they've been going for? He's 27 years old. He's a bit of experience, or is that a sign that they're thinking maybe we do need a slightly more experienced player in there?
I actually don't mind that idea because I agree, and I think most coaches or managers would like a little sprinkle of experience in and around a young-ish squad. I don't think they're actually as young as what people make out them to be. I remember when Chelsea won the league, I think it was only sort of half a year's average age group the first year Chelsea won the league. So, and Liam's worked with a younger squad in Strasbourg. So, listen, I think if you're sprinkling a little bit of experience amongst the group, particularly Premier League experience, I think that's a good move. But whether that needs to be in the central midfield area, I'm not so sure. But
yeah, money there already.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would look. I mean, and they've got Santos that I know Liam likes from his Strasbourg time. So
he's done well when Caicedo's been out as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, and listen, I think Reece James can play in there, albeit I'd much rather see him playing right back week in, week out. But
pretty good holding midfielder, is it?
No, exactly. I mean, we saw what he done to Arsenal in the 10-man team. So listen, he's capable of doing that. But listen, I'm all for adding a little bit of experience, and if it means that it's going to be on loan to stay within the structure, knowing that you can maybe hand him back at the end of the season, that might be what they're looking at.
So, linked loosely with Douglas Luiz, they are definitely up for Jeremy Jacquet and looking at strengthening at centre-back position. When you look at Chelsea, what do you think they need? What positions do they need to improve to go to the next level? Is it centre-back and central midfield?
Yeah, I don't look at central midfielders as that being a massive problem. I think we've got the best number 6 in the world in breaking up play in Caicedo. Enzo Fernandez has done better in the last year than he has done previously. He's actually getting some goals and assists. And I think if you've got a Cole Palmer, he has to play in the 10 for me. Whether that's the way Liam wants to play, we don't really know yet because he hasn't had Cole available at every opportunity. So I'd like to see a 9 that comes in and will score some goals. I know Liam Delap has played a bit lately, but I think we're lacking in that area. Whether we can get someone in who's got Premier League experience and used to scoring goals, who knows?
Were you perhaps surprised that Chelsea didn't bring in a centre-back in the summer after Levi's injury?
Absolutely. But again, it's who can you go out and get for, and maybe trying to stay within this pay structure, because I think we've maybe used a couple of loopholes that have got us out of a bit of money problems before. I don't know, selling women's teams and car parks and hotels and stuff. Whether they've got any more up their sleeve, who knows? But we can't go out there and spend, although it looks like the guy from Rennes is not going to be on the cheap as well, but who knows with what's going on at Chelsea. We seem to find a way to keep spending at the moment, but I'm not sure how long that can go on for.
Quite a bit of land at Cobham that could be sold, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Got a few more car parks they can sell off for your NCPs.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You never know what these accountants can come up with, do you?
Yeah, that's another show, by the way. We're not going to do that today, right? Still to come. We're going to bring you the thoughts of the Brighton boss, Fabian Hürzeler, and we're going to talk about Harvey Elliott. Will he leave Aston Villa? What's going on with him? Stay tuned. Breaking news, and Wolves have rejected a bid from Leeds for Jørgen Strand Larsen. The value of it's currently unconfirmed, but Wolves are believed to value him at £40 million, so we can assume it is under that. Wolves are quite content for him to stay, but he has interest from a number of clubs this month, and if he leaves, he has said that he wants to stay in the Premier League. Interesting, this, isn't it, Jody? First of all, from a Leeds point of view, why would you go for Jørgen Strand Larsen when you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Mecha already there?
I don't know. I mean, obviously Daniel Farke may think he needs to have a little bit of more strength in depth up top. You certainly wouldn't be looking at taking out Calvert-Lewin at the minute. He's on his hottest streak for years and doing such a great job. It's interesting, though, isn't it? It's because the numbers that was being spoken about for this player in the summer was, I think, a lot higher than 40 million, and it just shows you how quickly things can change in football. We've already mentioned that with Mainoo earlier, but
£55 million rejected in the summer.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like now do you bite the bullet and accept something less than that? Or, I mean, listen, for me, he's an okay player, but has obviously not performed well this year. Not many Wolves players have, but yeah, I'm slightly surprised by it.
Wolves seem to be open to listening to offers anyway for a few of their players at the moment. We've already seen Menetzi's gone off, hasn't he, to Paris FC. There's interest in João Gomez. So they've got a big decision to make, haven't they? Because they won't get the same amount of money for Jørgen Strand Larsen in the summer.
Well, this is it. We discussed this, I think it was last week, and I was explaining that if you're the Wolves hierarchy right now, the position they are in the league, do you look at it and go, well, hold on a minute, very unlikely, really unlikely we're going to survive in the Premier League. We've got to start building and looking at the Championship next season. So do you look and go, well, hold on a minute, are these players going to be with us next season? Jørgen Strand Larsen isn't going to be there next season, wants to play in the Premier League or a top-level league in Europe. So is this the right time to sell? Is this the best time where you're going to get the most money for? This is certainly an opportunity. I think Wolves probably look back and seeing the fact he's only scored once this season. He scored 14 last year, 13 the season before for Celta Vigo. He's really struggled this year. Hasn't started the last 5 games, which is interesting. It probably shows you what Rob Edwards is thinking in terms of building for his team as well for the end of the season and next year too. So look, I think Wolves have got an opportunity to cash in now. They'll hold fire. There's still 9-10 days left in the window. Again, as I mentioned before, clubs do get a bit more desperate, and so that figure can rise a little bit more. But he's been disappointing this year. He hasn't played great, but Wolves have struggled so much, so it's perhaps unsurprising.
All right, we're going to keep an eye on that one because could be a few Wolves players on the move before the end of the deadline. You never know. We've just got time to discuss some other players before we go off air here. We've picked out a couple just to have a little bit of a debate about them, what could happen to them. We're going to start with Mickey van der Ven. Now, interesting, Jody, because we've had some links with Liverpool, we should say, over the last few days. Spurs have said don't want to sell him. Could you see any way that Spurs would change their mind on that?
For January?
Yeah.
I can't see it for January. I mean, especially when you go in, I think he's a player that can probably command a very high fee and have a good few clubs interested in. But the links with Liverpool, I think, are only natural, seeing as they've now missed out on Mark Guehi. So I think he's a player that a lot of teams would like. I think he complements other centre-halves as well, especially with his pace and the fact that he can break lines carrying the ball into midfield. We've seen him score a couple of outstanding goals. But yeah, I think he's a great addition to many teams, but don't see it this month.
OK, we've got about 30 seconds on Harvey Elliott. Dean Smith has confirmed to us that Charlotte FC are interested in him. What would you do in that situation if you're Harvey Elliott? Would you go to the MLS?
I'm not sure if I'd go to the MLS, and that's nothing on Dean Smith. I love Dean Smith, good coach and all that. But I think for Harvey Elliott's future, who I like him, I think he's a talented boy, played great for England under 21s. He just needs to get game time. But if I was him, I'd prefer it to be in this country and in front of the eyes of...
But he can only go back to Liverpool or play for Aston Villa, which would trigger his obligation to sign, and Aston Villa made it clear they don't want to do that.
OK, so he's got to go to US... OK, well, yeah. He needs games.
Great to see you, Jody. Thank you very much. Thank you, James, as well. We're back with Transfer Talk at midday. Following us, though, it's Sky Sports FC with Jay Bothroyd. Stay tuned.